this one out. I don't wear it real often, but I thought,
Right.
broke it out for the
Nice.
meeting. And
All right. Thank you
We're
for
gonna
being
for us
here.
to share because there was not enough. So you and I will share.
Hello.
But then I can, you get to take it.
The Lucia Mar Unified School District Board of Trustees have been in closed session. It's now 7 p.m. and we are reconvening into regular session. I have a couple items to announce out of closed session. First off, a settlement agreement. The Board of Trustees has approved a settlement with a student and their family regarding a student discipline matter case 2425-04. In exchange for a reduction of the expulsion term, the parent agreed to withdraw their expulsion appeal and waive all claims against the district that may have arisen through the date of the agreement. The motion was by Stewart, second by Santos, and it was a unanimous vote. Secondly, the Board of Education finds that the request for readmission of student case number 2324-035 on April 23rd, 2024 governing board packet be approved. The board finds that the student has completed the term of their expulsion rehabilitation plan and is ready to return to a comprehensive school campus of the Lucia Mar Unified School District, and it was voted on unanimously. Okay, now we're going to start our meeting with our flag salute. Dr. Fawcett.
All right. Thank you, President Martin. So I would like to invite up 4 students who are here today to lead us in the flag salute, and they're all from Fairgrove Elementary School. And we have Camille Benvenu. Camille, can you come on up to the mic, please? All right. And we have Parker Bassett, Tessa Quiano, and Riley Quiano. Let's invite them all up to the mic to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So Camille is a 6th grader. Parker is in the 5th grade. Tessa is in the 3rd grade, and Riley is a 1st grader. And we're so excited to have them here today to lead us in the pledge. So girls, we're going to need one of you to speak into the mic when you ask us to stand and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay. Please stand. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. So girls, if you wouldn't mind staying over here, President Martin has a little gift for you. So come back up to the mic if you can.
So you must be pretty special that your principal selected to be here tonight, is that right? All right, so this is our start.
And they will be presenting later on in the board meeting too, so stick around.
Okay, we're going to move on to communications items of interest from the board. This is the time when anyone from the board shares things of interest educationally or otherwise here. Anyone like to share?
I don't know. I guess I would just say I'm the new board member, and I'm thankful to the community for putting me here. I am ready to go to work, and hope a lot of you will support me and all of us by being here often. It means a lot to us to hear from you, and I'd like to hear from you personally, know what you're thinking. So just thankful to be here. I'm ready to, do some work. Got a lot to learn, so.
Anyone else? Well, I have a few things to say. First up, I'd like to announce, because a lot of people in our community don't know, that Measure H, our school bond, passed. And we are very excited about that. That will allow us to have the funds we need to hopefully get rid of all our portables and continue to make our site safer and more up to date and respect the professional educators that work for us by giving them respectful facilities. I also wanted to talk a little bit about Vicky Mayer, our outgoing board trustee. The way the election went on forever, we were unable to have her here at the board meeting and present to her like we would have liked to. So I just want to tell you a little bit about Vicky's service. Ms. Mayer was an advocate for all kids. She was a teacher for 39 years in our district and on our school board for 12 years. She helped to hire 3 superintendents. She helped pass 2 school bonds. She sat in on countless negotiation sessions with our employee unions. She endured a pandemic and was successfully traveled through that pandemic to our success. She showed up to many school sites and events whenever needed. She read the budget pages very thoroughly, especially regarding facilities and athletics. She helped curate our new governance handbook. She advocated for the growth of CTE, our career technical education, including our culinary and ag facilities. She was an ambassador for the district, always saying good things and sharing the good things that were going on. She liked children, and LuciaMar thanks her for her gift of public service. So we're sorry she's not here tonight, but I did want to put that on the record that we honor her for her service. All right, I'm going to move on to superintendent's report.
All right. Thank you, President Martin. So at the start of this meeting, for the folks that weren't in the room, we did have our oath of offices for 3 trustees tonight. So from trustee area 1, we had Don Stewart, who was re-sworn in. So congratulations to him. Give him a round of applause. We had trustee Dee Santos, who is back again as well, too. Let's give her a big round of applause. And we have our new trustee, Mike Fuller, who's with us tonight, too. Let's give him a round of applause for joining the team. So just a quick shout out, because we didn't get to say this to Vicki before she left. She was a trustee for 12 years, and President Martin covered all the wonderful work that she did, but I also enjoyed working with her too. She was always very student-centered, and she was very visible out in the community, and she was always at our school sites and all the school events, and she definitely poured her heart and dedication into making the school district a better place, and so we appreciate her service, and we're also looking forward to Mike's service. And Mike is already showing the same type of dedication. He's learning, and he's reading about the board packets and all the school board business that we get to learn about as a governance team. So welcome, Mike. Thank you for picking up the torch, and we're looking forward to working with you on this team as well, too. So round of applause one more time.
Thanks, man.
And then young lady sitting to my left, Raquel Lujano. She has been with us officially now for 1 year. She stepped in for Marilyn Dwight, and she's been doing a fantastic job. So I think it's important to celebrate people, especially when they hit their 1-year anniversary with the school district in this role. She's been with the school district for much longer than that, but I have appreciated her being the executive assistant to the school board and the superintendent. So let's give her a big round of applause as well. And now I would like to invite up some of the staff and representatives from Oceano Elementary School. Let's have them come on up to the front of the room, and we're going to say some nice things about them. So I see Mr. DeCecco, he's out there, and for over 10 years now, the Oceano Elementary School has been really working hard to build out safe paths and safe travels to school. And the way they've done that is through creating this outstanding cycling community with all the students. It's oftentimes you'll go downtown and you'll see like 70 to 80 kids strolling downtown to get ice cream on their bikes, led by the school team. And it is just so phenomenal and so exciting. They have accomplished so much in making this happen in the Oceano community that they were awarded as the only school in the entire nation to be designated the gold level bicycle friendly business of the United States. So let's give them a huge round of applause for all that work. Right. And I see Wanda is here as well too, and I invite you to come to the mic and share a few words if you'd like, and then I have a certificate that we want to present to you.
Okay. So, the new people that are up on the board. My name is Jim DeCecco. I was a teacher here at Lucia Mara in Oceano for 34 years, retired, got bored, and then came back to work in special ed. Before I kind of start, I just want to say, as somebody who's working in special ed, you need to know that they're working their tails off. I mean, all teachers work their tails off. I see it every day at Oceano. But in a new role as a para in special ed, they do right by students. So I just wanted to go ahead and mention that. The award that we received was from the League of American Cyclists. It's a national organization, well over 200,000 members. And so our award is designated as a bike-friendly business. And what happens is that, we apply for it, we tell them all the great things that we're doing. And like Mr. Fawcett said, we were awarded a gold level, the only school in 2017. And then when we reapplied, we were one of 3 elementary schools in the whole nation that received this award. So we're very proud of what we do. This is not I'm up here speaking. This is not a Jim DeCecco award. This is actually a community award. We do a number of things. The Monson family runs our walk and roll monthly days where we give out incentives for students to walk or bike to school. We have a Safe Routes Committee. We have my crew here that rides once a week on our bike school bus every Tuesday. We have rides, bike posse rides once a month to go ahead and get ice cream. So what we do is, we take the community, and I was talking about pairs in the back. I have Diana and Destiny. They lead the charge on all of our rides. So they put in that extra time to go ahead and do those things. So I want to make sure that they get recognized for what they do. And of course, the staff, I see Miss McLean back there and Mrs. Thomas, who go ahead and support all the things that are asked of them for their students when they go ahead and ride to school. So anyways, we want to thank you for the recognition. Oh, I cannot forget, because I always do since I'm up here. I want to thank my wife for go ahead and supporting all that. Janet George, some of you may know her. This doesn't happen without her riding her bike also on various occasions too. So, and all the things that she does for the Oceano community. So thank you very much for recognizing us today. And do you guys have anything to say? They're all like, no. So come on up.
All right. So on behalf of the school board, I wanted to present you with this award. Any work you've done for your community?
Right there.
Give me a
There you go. Thank you. You bet. Go ahead, Sky.
All right.
All right.
A lot of applause for them. And that's it.
Well, thank you, Mr. DeCecco, and all you at Oceano Elementary who are supporting the bike riding and walking to school. That's awesome. We really appreciate you. Okay, we're going to move on to the business of our district. Beforehand, I'm going to share with you my introductory comments. There's a couple of announcements before we get started with the official meeting of the Board of Education, where the public is invited to observe and provide comments. There are speaker cards in the back that are yellow and blue. Please fill them out if you'd like to speak on any item. Is Ms. Hernandez here? Do I see you? Hi, Elsa. Good to see you. If anyone would like English to Spanish translation, Ms. Hernandez is here to assist you. And then the decorum on the last pages of our printed agenda, which is available in the foyer, are our decorum standards, and they're stated pretty clearly. And didn't see the security team up there. Okay, good. You have keen eyesight with them. And thank you to our security team. Here's a little guidance about public comment at our meeting. Public comments are an opportunity for members of the community to address the Board of Trustees in the meeting of the school board that is open to the public. Members of the public are encouraged to address the board concerning any item on the agenda or any item of interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Public comments are limited to at most 3 minutes and no more than 20 minutes total for one subject matter, under the discretion of the presiding officer. The board will not take any action or have discussion on any item not appearing on the posted agenda, except as authorized by law. This is why the board does not respond during the public comment section of our agenda. It is important to recognize that opinions and comments shared here are those of individual speakers and may not represent the views of our district, the board, or our staff. LuciaMar is committed to fostering an inclusive, welcoming, and safe environment at our meetings and at our schools. We respect everyone's right to express their ideas and opinions. All remarks must be free from personal attacks, particularly those based on legally protected categories such as race, religion, disability, and sexual orientation. Our district is dedicated to serving and nurturing all our students, guiding them to become responsible, ethical, and productive members of society. To honor this mission, please make sure your comments avoid profanity, demonstrate tolerance towards differing viewpoints, and exhibit exemplary conduct. Our students are watching and learning from us. Please be aware that any disturbance or intentional interruption of the meeting is not permissible. In accordance with recently enacted law, excessive disruption by any individual or group will result in the board president revoking the individual's or group's privilege to address the board. Disruptive participants may be warned and, if necessary, removed from the meeting. We value your participation in the public meeting of the Board of Education and thank you for your cooperation in maintaining the efficiency, effectiveness, and civility of LuciaMar, and we're glad to see you here tonight. Okay, we're going to move on to the consent calendar action items. These are items 1 through 10 that are quite routine in nature. Does anyone have any things they'd like to pull or questions from the board? Items 1 through 10. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to open it up to public comment. Would anyone in the audience like to make comment on items 1 through 10 of our consent calendar action items? Seeing none, I'm going to bring it back to the board for comment. Does anyone from the board have comment on items 1 through 10? I do, so I'm going to make a couple comments. First off, just rolling through the numbers. Item number 2, ratification of expenditures. I just want to note that 8.8 million of those expenditures are payroll. 8.8 million. Item number 5, approval independent contractor agreement. There's an agreement there for $9,000, and it looked like maybe someone might not know what that's for. And that has to do with special ed assessments being done outside of district personnel. And then item number 10, the approval of the comprehensive school safety program. And I went through that quite extensively today. And I want to say that we're really making progress on the safety at our schools. And I just wanted to comment about the fact we have the Raptor ID system at all our schools, even our salon here. If you're going to come get your hair done, because there's under 18 kids there, you're going to have to show your ID and run it through our system. We've increased our outdoor lighting at most of our facilities. We've improved fencing at all our campuses. And one of the biggest things that I see that improves the safety of our students is we've increased our counseling for all students at all schools. We're creating more inclusive activities at all our schools so no one feels left out. And we're feeding our students, which helps them feel welcome and ready to learn. So there's lots of things we're doing in our comprehensive safety plan, but they didn't mention the soft skills that I think are really important to making our site safer. Okay, anyone else have comment on items 1 through 10?
Yes, I just want to
Ms. Santos.
reiterate the item 10. I'm glad you brought that up because it's something that we should take out of our packets and keep and go over it maybe once a month for ourselves because it is very important.
All right, I'm looking for a motion.
Move approval consent calendar items 1 through 10.
Second.
It's been moved by Trustee Stewart, second by Trustee Santos to approve the consent calendar action items 1 through 10.
President Martin, Trustee Naomi Vernier had her hand up before
yes,
that. Yeah,
yes.
sorry about that.
In regards to item number 5,
Thank you.
thank you. So we're looking at educational assessments for $9,000. Is this continuous on or just a one-time approval?
One-time approval.
What?
One-time
It's
approval.
a one-time approval.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Stewart, a second by Ms. Santos on items 1 through 10. Roll call vote, please.
Stewart,
Aye.
Santos,
Yes.
Baum,
Yes.
Naomi Vernier,
Yes.
Fuller,
Yes.
Kendall,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. So look at that. We already got through 10 items. Pretty good. So there's a lot of you here for item number 11. Dr. Fawcett, do you want to introduce them?
You bet. Thank you, President Martin. So I would like to invite up Principal Carol Littlefield Halfman to the mic. She's going to present on the goals and celebrations that are going on at Fairgrove Elementary School, along with, I think, a few of her students. And I just want to give her a quick shout out because she's had a long day. She was subbing in classrooms today because we do still have a sub shortage in our area. So anybody in the audience that wants to sub and help out our schools, we encourage you to do that so that Miss Littlefield Halfman can focus on her principal duties. Come on up, Carol.
Okay, good evening, everyone. And Mr. Fuller, we're happy to be the first school that you get to be introduced to. So we're excited for that. I'm going to ask Mr. Pemberton to come up. Kean Pemberton is one of our teachers. He's one of our teachers on special assignment, and he's going to assist with our presentation. You've already met our 4 students. We have Miss Riley Quijano, Miss Tessa Quijano. I'm going to go in age, Miss Parker Bassett, and Miss Camille Bienvenu. And then we also, as I've already said, have Mr. Pemberton. So I'm doing what, Ms. Raquel?
Press the arrow.
Just press down.
Press down. There we go. Okay. So we are Fairgrove, and again, hopefully share some information with you. The rest of you are all familiar, and we just want to share a few pieces of information with very eager smiles with you right now. So the 3 things that we want to focus on are a few Fairgrove updates. We also want to talk about Fairgrove's mission and vision statements, and Mr. Pemberton's going to go into detail about that. And then these guys are all here to talk about goal setting, and so we're going to get there. So in terms of some informational updates, I wanted to share with you that there are many areas in which we think that we can highlight, but we really want to focus on academics and a really special nod to our PTO, our parent-teacher organization. In terms of academics, we're happy to be one of all the schools, but of the 18 schools in Lucia Mar that's implemented professional learning communities. We're now in year number 2. And for Fairgrove, in both years, we have been having a school-wide focus on mathematics. For those of you who know me, I'm looking at Mr. Stewart, no big shock there.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't, secondary math teacher in Lucia Mar for years before my current role. But we really felt that mathematics was the focus that we needed to have, and especially this year, since we have our iReady implementation with the new curriculum. And so we're excited about that. I think one of the takeaways that most teachers would have is that we are providing some really strategic time for our grade level teams to collaborate. And everything that I hear from them is that they're greatly appreciative of that. Another thing that I recently learned, I just had this assumption that all schools in Lucia Mar are providing extra support to English learners, but Fairgrove may stand out a bit on this. So we have 24 students who every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday after school participate in English learner support. We have 3 teachers who share the task of providing that. And then we have absolutely a wonderful bus driver who knew that if he didn't pitch in to help take our kiddos, a few students up on the Mesa, that they wouldn't be able to participate. So we have this core group of people who've been really instrumental in helping those students. And I just had assumed that all schools did this, but Mr. Roscoe, our site EL lead, said, no, that's not the case. And so we wanted to highlight that. Something I'm really excited to share with you is that for the trimester 1 iReady assessment data, specifically growth data, Fairgrove had the highest growth of any elementary school in the district. So as I do my dance at Mr. Gimlin, And that's median growth, which is another topic that we could talk about at a different time, but very excited for all of our students and what occurred. And they know we've announced it over the, yeah, so see Camille saying, yes, we've heard. So we're super excited. And then just another thing in terms of academics, and kind of this leads into the next part that I want to talk about, is the concept of having connections to other aspects of our community. We hosted last week a Cal Poly STEM Day. There is a professor at Cal Poly who's been working with me, and so her students specifically came to school and taught second, third, and sixth grade students. She didn't, her students did. You'll probably see some pictures. Amy Jacobs was there, so it may make its way into one of the newsletters, but we're super excited about that. And so those are just some academic highlights, but kind of a smattering, if you will. And then in terms of our PTO, it just seemed to me that I really needed to emphasize that every school benefits greatly from either a PTO, as is the case with us, or a parent-teacher association. Ours is just simply critical to our success, to our whole community. I just thought, what are three recent, well, one's coming up, but two recent events and one coming up. We have a family bingo night each year, and it is wildly popular. Tons of people come. Students just have never played bingo like that before, and so it's just so much fun. And then we recently had National Cookie Day. Yes, see, we had National Cookie Day, and so they were able to provide a cookie for every person in the whole staff. And then this Thursday, if you would like to come join us, we used to call it our annual book exchange, but our PTO decided to change the name this year because people were confused and thought that you had to donate a book to get a book, and that really isn't the spirit of the night. The spirit is come to Fairgrove, grab some books, take home, and enjoy them for the next year. But that's Thursday at 6 o'clock. So we're having our annual book giveaway, as if you didn't know. You know that we're having that. And then I do have to show this. And then actually, Hillary Dixon even already commented. This was our PTO's float for the Grover Beach City Parade that did not occur. And so if you take a look at it, the whole theme was Groovy Grover Christmas, I think. Thankfully, we were able to enter the Arroyo Grande Parade because our PTO feels that since some of our students technically live in Arroyo Grande, it would be fun to participate in that parade as well. And we did, but we didn't get to use it in the Grover Beach Parade. But look at that float. It's just totally amazing. And our parents are just wonderful. So those are... Okay, it will be there Thursday night. And so, and by the way, I just realized our PTO president is right back over there. So there she is. All right, yes. And so now I'm going to pass this off to Mr. Pemberton, who's going to talk about our mission and vision statements. And I'm hopeful he's going to fess up and say one critical piece.
So creating the mission and vision statements was something that we have spent a long time focusing on and really trying to figure out how to create a statement that reflects our school and what we want for our students. So we started by looking at the district's vision statement and their mission statement and thinking about how we could use those threads and tie them into what Fairgrove is doing and what we're looking for. And after a long time of deliberation in our guiding coalition, we came out with this. So our mission statement at Fairgrove is to engage, challenge, and inspire through the power of learning, ensuring our students continue to build the skills and deepen their knowledge required to become agents of change in their communities. And I'm going to come back to some of the language in there because we're using that to sort of tie together how we're building our goals for our students. But first we can talk through the vision statement. So the vision statement is every student has a path to success. And that's what Carol wants me to shout out. That one came out of me. But I think that really ties together what we were all trying to talk about through our mission statement and through the school. That's exactly right. It's right there. So every student has a path to success is really the point, because that path may lead to different places and it may be completely different for different students. But we want to make that clear to our students that everyone has their path to where they want to get at our school. So the language I was talking about earlier would be, one, the power of learning. So that is academic achievement, but it's also goals, and it's also building independent learners that can go forward and realize what they can do with the knowledge that they take from our school. And the second part of our mission statement is agents of change, because it's not just about learning, it's not just about the knowledge, it's about building those connections with community and understanding how to work in that community to create something. So we sort of broke both of those down into those three parts. For agents of change, that's emotionally intelligent, role models, and building community connections. And in the next part, we'll show how we use those words to help focus our students on what we're trying to help them achieve. And by tying those in with the goals, so when students are setting goals, we might focus, for instance, this trimester for Agents of Change, we're focusing on emotional intelligence. What does that mean? What does that look like? How do you practice that in your school and your day? And so by focusing, taking a big mission statement that for a student might be a lot to look at, looking at those single statements, those single phrases, and then boiling them down to what can you do today to work towards those goals? And then our students here will share with you how they do that at our school.
So I can't say enough. It was Kian who one day during our work on our mission and vision, he was sitting and he was thinking and he came up with that single sentence. And it was like, that's it. That's our vision for our kids. So I'm still kind of moved to remember that moment. So hopefully all of you know that you've seen the progress to parents or the reports to parents. And there's the front side that talks about all of the academic information and other stuff. But the back, there's some other information. And one of them is goals. It's about students writing goals. And so our school just felt like we just didn't have a real handle on that. And we want it to be something that really becomes personal and meaningful to our students. And so that's why these guys are here, because we've begun the work this year. So we're going to have them share their goals in a second, but I do want to give you a little bit of a peek at what we've done. In trimester 1, it was all about just learning how to create a goal, and that's what we really focused on. This coming trimester, the one that we're currently in, they've now created, or they're going to create by the end of this week, their second goal, or their second round of goals. And they're also beginning what we're calling buddy conversations. Most elementary schools have big little buddies and they get together, and oftentimes they get together, they talk about reading, and they maybe just kind of get to visit. But we're now trying to be very strategic and take part of that time where the buddies get together to talk about the goals, big buddy to little buddy, and then back and forth. And so we're going to talk about that. So what we'd like to do is we would like to let Camille go first. She's our 6th grader, and she's going to talk about her current goals for, well, actually both goals, trimester 1 and trimester 2.
So during trimester 1, my goal was to be kind to everyone, because I'm a 6th grader and really all elementary students sometimes can struggle with that. So that was my goal. And one thing that I said that I would try to do to achieve that was being kind to my friends and the younger students at the school. And that was a really big goal of mine. And so far, I've pretty much achieved that. And my second goal for trimester 2 was to get better at dividing fractions. And I said that I was going to keep practicing and ask questions to get better. Because to get better, you have to ask questions to know the answers to be able to do it. Those are my 2 goals.
And Camille's going to come back in a moment and visit. Okay, Parker.
My trimester 1 goal was to get better grades, and one thing that I did to do that was always pay attention and try harder, because sometimes I wasn't trying my best, but now I am. From what I was doing.
Okay, and then now Tessa. Put the mic down.
For my trimester 1 goal,
You actually have shared your trimester 2 goals.
My trimester 2 goals. I can take a deep breath when things get hard because in 3rd grade things do get harder for me, and I just need to take a deep breath and like take 10 seconds and then get back on my work. And my other goal is I can help someone if they get hurt or if they're sick on the playground. So let's say if someone falls off the monkey bars, I can help them up. If they're sad, I can ask them if they want to play with.
All right.
Okay, Riley. Okay, you don't have to get down because you're here for a reason. Wait, you want to get back up here because you want to get close to the mic. Okay, and here is Riley. She's in 1st grade. Oh, I'm so sorry. This was Peyton who went home today with a fever. She was going to be here. She's not here. Okay, here is Riley in 1st grade.
My first trimester 1 is I will be kind and raise my hand.
Do you think you were able to do that? Yes, and then she actually, our 1st graders oftentimes illustrate their goals because they have a hard time writing. And so she illustrated her goal. And so good job. Okay, yay. So then the thing that we're starting now is that we're starting our buddy conversation. So if I could have Camille and Tessa, who just happen to be big little buddies, so they're going to show you that we've created a ring of cards, and these are sentence starters for them to actually, not really natural. Okay, so they're going to kind of model that for a couple of rounds.
What is one thing you're going to do to accomplish your goal?
I am going to for my first goal, what I want to do is if things are hard, I will count to 10 and take a deep breath, like 1, 2, and all the way to 10. As you work on this goal, what is another goal you might consider in the future?
Probably doing better on writing. Like writing, but sometimes and I don't do my best on it. Okay, Tessa, how will you feel when you meet your goal?
I will be really proud of myself. I'll be really proud of myself, and I'll be really proud of myself.
I think in terms of those sentence starters, you kind of get the feel. So thank you guys for that. But I did want to let Camille kind of wrap this up because when we're talking about.
Yes. So a goal that I had for at home or out of school was that I wanted to be able to do all of the things that I need to with like just doing it and not pushing it off, because sometimes I do that because I just don't want to do it. So I want to try to just do it instead of saying, I'll do it tomorrow.
One of the things Camille feels like the goal process that we've started at Fairgrove has got her to think more about the importance of it. So Thank you, you guys, very, very much. Yes. Is that yours? And so really in closing, we did talk about a few informational updates and then also the mission and vision statements and the goal setting. And really what I want to do is just thank you for the opportunity to share this information. I think we've got some great work started because goal setting is just this foreign concept to students, but I think we're off on the right path. And that's really what I wanted to share. And that's what Dr. Foss and I talked about. So thank you very, very much.
We're so glad that you decided to come to work every day, Carol. Thank you.
Well, if it's okay, I think we're all going to leave now. I haven't even done.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I see that Mr. Eichberger is snappy on it for item number 12, which is approval acceptance of fiscal year 2023-2024 annual financial report for Lucia Mar Unified School District as prepared by Eide Bailey LLP, Certified Public Accountants. How do I say that?
Eide Bailey.
Eide Bailey.
Yes.
Okay.
So this evening, thank you, President Martin. This evening, I have the pleasure of introducing Scott Gustafson, and he is a partner of Eide Bailey LLP, and they are a certified public accountant firm for the state, and they will be representing the report to the board on our fiscal year 23-24 independent audit and the results for the budget report. There's 2 items this evening.
Yes, there is.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you for having me again.
You're at a school district. We have students. Thank you for enduring.
Right. I'll be brief, but by all means, if we want to get into any details, happy to cover. Whoa, excuse me. Jumping ahead there. Any questions you might have. So a quick synopsis of kind of what we do. We come out and start the audit process. Nowadays with technology, everyone will say it's a year-long process. I'm sure Rhonda feels like it probably never ends, the whole business department and many of your sites. But typically we do kind of have what we call an interim and a final phase. Our interim phase, a little more technically speaking, happens in that May timeframe. We're looking at internal controls at your district. We're going to school sites potentially. We're looking at ASBs, attendance, payroll, different functions like that. We're starting some of our compliance testing over state and federal programs. When we come into quote unquote wrap up the audit, although it just kind of seems like it always goes, that happens more in that September-October timeframe. You guys have seen the audited actuals typically by that point. We come in and we do our final field work. And really ultimately what you end up with, without getting into every single page of the audit, on page 97 you have your summary of auditors' results. And that just kind of encompasses the 3 opinions that really are within this audit. And that goes back to what I talked about a second ago. It's that financial statements once you've wrapped up the year end. It's the state compliance opinion related to the Education Audit Appeals Panel, which issues out an audit guide every year. So areas like attendance, instructional minutes, different independent study programs, things like that are all within that purview. And then finally, your federal programs. And that really is just in accordance with OMB guidelines under single audit. There's a sort of a risk assessment that takes place. Any entity that expends more than $750,000 in federal awards, obviously Lucia Mar does that, is required to undergo that single audit. So there's an opinion related to that. And I'll kind of run through them briefly and hit on any high points. For the financial statements on page 97, again, that's summary that you see, an unmodified opinion. There was a significant deficiency noted. I'll mention that in a second and just kind of walk you through that quickly. For the federal awards, no material weaknesses, no findings, no non-compliance, an unmodified opinion. Specifically to the child nutrition cluster was the cluster that was considered what we call a major program this year. So that's what we audited. We didn't audit every single federal dollar you spent. It was specific to that. And that's based on a risk assessment in accordance with those guidelines. And you did qualify to be a low risk auditee. That's just a set of rules that allows for slightly less testing if the entity has performed well in the past. And then last but not least, state compliance. And again, with that, no material weaknesses, no findings, no deficiencies, no issues. So as it relates to those specific audit procedures that are required to be performed from the audit guide, no issues came about from any of that testing. Backing up to that significant deficiency, if you just flip to the next page, 98, 99, that outlines what that is. And all that is during the course of an audit, sometimes you come up with various audit adjustments or controls that you see, and that creates what we call a deficiency and a control depending on the severity of it. This was an instance where, just for some context, kind of just a clerical error, like a formula error within your depreciation schedules for your capital assets that we noted. It wasn't material enough to really rise to the level of what we would call material weakness, but we did feel it was enough to note, to the board. So we've already worked with the district on kind of what they can do to implement procedures going forward. It doesn't have any impact whatsoever operationally or budget-wise or anything like that. It's strictly numbers that go on the audit report, kind of at a top level. So I guess that's the good news, but that was the only thing that we had to note this year. I'll end it there, but happy to.
Does anyone have any questions for the auditor?
If I could, on page 81, there at the bottom, and maybe I should know this, but I don't. That second paragraph says the district has incurred operating surpluses in the past 3 years and anticipates incurring an operating deficit for 24-25. Can you give me a little explanation of why?
That's just verbiage based on the numbers you see above. So you have the 3 prior fiscal years that took place as the audit, and then you have effectively your July 1 budget coming up. So we look, if you look at that ending, or apologize, right above the ending fund balance where it says increase or decrease in fund balance number. So since the 3 prior years, and again, prior for us being, 23-24 is our current year, so to speak. But for 22, 23, and 24, the district ended with an increase in their fund balance at the end of the year, but are projecting a decrease in their fund balance as of the July 1 budget going into 24-25. It's not an actual number for the budget, but that's what that wording references, is those activities that have occurred and then what's expected to occur potentially.
Trying to figure out if it's a problem we have to worry about going forward. Continuation.
Well, in the budget, we'll have the 3-year outlook, and that was where.
Yeah.
Anyone else from the board have questions for the auditor? Does anyone from the audience have questions or public comment on this item, the audit of the annual financial report of Lucia Mar for 2023-2024 for Lucia Mar accounts, not the bond accounts? Seeing none, I'm going to close it to public comment. Bring back to the board. Does the board have any comments? I just have one. Thank you for commenting. I did notice the significant difficulties encountered during the audit as far as that misstatement. As soon as I saw it, bam, I was calling the district saying, what's going on here? And once I realized it was just a digit left off on putting on an Excel spreadsheet, and it had nothing to do with our ending balance or change anything about our figures, I knew it was fine, but I'm glad you reported it because we want to be transparent with the fact that we're human, and once in a while we make a small error. So thank you. Okay, thank you. And just stay there while we vote. We'll move on to the next one. I do need a vote on this. It is an approval and acceptance of this item number 12.
I move approval, acceptance, fiscal year 2023-2024 annual financial report for the CMR Unified School District as prepared by Eide Bailly LLP, certified public accountants.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Stewart, second by Ms. Candell, to approve item number 12. Roll call vote, please.
Stewart?
Aye.
Candell?
Yes.
Santos?
Yes.
Baum?
Yes.
Naomi Bernier?
Yes.
Fuller?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. I'm glad you stayed up here because Mr. Eichberger is going to introduce you.
Our next item is an independent audit of our Measure I expenditures. So the same way we have an independent audit conducted of our district's expenditures, we do the exact same with a much more limited scope expenditure of our Measure I funds.
Thank you for having me again. I'll give a quick backstory on why this is needed. So Proposition 39 allows the district and government entities to issue bonds within their districts at slightly a less approval threshold than the old 66 or 67%. In doing so, though, there are requirements for a fiscal audit, a financial statement audit, as well as what we call a performance audit to make sure that those funds are being tracked as well as expended specific to what the voters approve for the district. So that's what you have in front of you here within that financial and performance audit. One piece to note, and I think this is the case for you, but just to be clear, you know, if there are additional funds in the building fund, which is where these funds are typically held of the district, this is specific to Measure I. So if there were, for example, additional measures or some other funds being deposited into the building fund, this pulls out Measure I because that's what the voters voted on, and they want to make sure that you're looking at those dollars only. So the financial statements here may not always mirror exactly what you see in the building fund of the district, but it is for Measure I. So we had no issues with the financial statements, again, specific to Measure I. And then going on to the second half of that is the performance audit. So that's another piece of that Proposition 39 when you get those bonds passed under that measure that you're required to go through and have that performance audit done. And really the easiest way to summarize that, we just perform testing to essentially ensure that the expenditures within Measure I were in accordance with what the voters approved based on ballot measures, based on the different documents that were out there. From that, on page 18, at the very back, our sample this year, which is based on materiality levels, we call it scoping, as well as a number of other factors, was approximately 11.7 million, which represented approximately 90% of all dollars spent. So, we don't shoot for a specific amount or a specific percentage, but typically we do cover a good amount of the dollars. So, as it relates to that with the performance audit, we didn't have any issues with any of the expenditures within bond funds. And to the extent that there was payroll charged, because that is allowed under a specific legal opinion, we do specifically look at payroll if there are payroll charges and ensure that those are in accordance with those legal guidance as well.
Great. Does anyone have any questions for the auditor? Seeing none, I'm going to open it up to public comment. Would anyone from the audience like to comment on this item? Seeing none, I'm going to close it to public comment, bring it back to the board for comment. Anyone from the board like to make comment on this item? Well, I just said it. I just mentioned that we passed Measure H, so I guess that's some job security for you because when you finish Measure I auditing, you're going to be right back here for Measure H auditing.
For better or worse. Yeah.
Okay. All right. This does require an approval and acceptance of this item. Thank you very much. I'm looking for a motion from the board.
Move approval, acceptance, fiscal year 2023-2024 annual financial report for Lucia Mar Unified School District General Obligation Bonds, Building Fund for Measure I, as prepared by Eide Bailly LLP, Certified Public Accountants.
I second.
Great. A motion by Stewart, second by Naomi Bernier. Roll call vote, please.
Stewart.
Aye.
Naomi Bernier.
Yes.
Fuller.
Yes.
Kendall.
Yes.
Santos. Yes. Paul.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes, motion passes. Thank you very much. 7-0. Okay, moving on to the Kirk Eichberger Show. We are on item number 14, approval fiscal year 2024-2025 first interim financial report.
Dr. Fawcett said to keep it under 1 hour, so I was just kidding.
I spent more than 1 hour reading this.
I will definitely give you the highlights. So this evening I have the first interim budget for our 24-25 school year, and it is a contemporaneous evaluation, or my favorite, snapshot in time of our current budget. And it is from that period of the June budget adoption all the way through the end of September, meaning any changes to our budget picture. And that includes updating position control, meaning the people that we hired, moving people over on step and column, and then refining those revenue projections that are coming from the state. And ultimately, as you will see, it was a positive certification. What that means is our budget for the current year and the next 2 years remains positive. So that concept of a multi-year projection, or MYP, is positive. I'll talk a little bit more about that later when I show our updated MYP. But before we do that, I'm going to give a little bit of a context. So this time last year, there was sticker shock, meaning the state had delayed personal income taxes not once, but over this ginormous, I love those words, period of time where we did not know what our actual revenue was going to be at budget development, meaning the state kept kicking down the can of personal income tax to where we had estimates, but we didn't know exactly what we were going to be experiencing, to the fact that the state's total revenues dropped 40% during that deadline or that delay, and that impacted our first interim quite substantially. This year, we are on the other end of that pendulum, and it came in at 7.1 billion above the estimates. There are going to be some keynotes that I'm going to talk about shortly as we talk about how there is some caution as it relates to that $7 billion. Basically, that was 4 big tech companies that did some stock dividends and buyouts, and that impacted the overall personal income tax revenue. And there was one company, a single company, that actually accounted for 1/3 of the S&P 500 growth last year. So when we think about this booming economy, really we're talking about one sector of the economy, and it should be taken with a little bit of caution, as it is not representative of the total pay to our workers. And that's where on that top graphic, you'll see an orange dot next to 2 purple dots. And that orange dot is the actual historical average throughout that chart. And you'll notice that it is slightly better. The 2 first quarters of 24 are slightly better than the average. However, when we look at the unemployment rate in the nation, the unemployment rate is higher. So when we think about wages being higher, that's good. When we think about unemployment being higher, that's bad. Ultimately, the national unemployment is very similar to the San Luis Obispo unemployment rate of 4%, plus or minus 0.1. However, as a state, our unemployment rate is actually up. One of the other things to look at a little bit more specifically when we think about consumer confidence is taxable sales, meaning our sales tax revenue is down from the average, and that ultimately could potentially show some consumer confidence weakening or less free cash for consumers, which is just another economic indicator that we watch. As I shared slightly before, we do have a little bit better than the state average in terms of unemployment, meaning we're right around 4%. But the thing to look at is how it mirrors the labor force market, meaning one of the challenges is even though unemployment is relatively low, we also have a very tight job market. When we think about the vacancies that have been continuing in special education, whether that's teachers or paraeducators, our bus drivers, there are a number of positions that we've struggled to fill, and that's because there are not a lot of other workers that are continuing to seek employment in the current market. When we think about the state's forecast, there is some unknown. That graph on the left represents the line being the trend or the kind of what they are anticipating as the budget. You'll notice 23-24, they knew what the actual spending and revenues were going to be. 24-25, that gray area represents what the final revenues could be, meaning we're still waiting on a couple economic indicators to finish out the current year. However, that unknown grows substantially when we start thinking about the out years. And really what that means is there's not a clear prediction of exactly what the economy is going to do. So it is important that we continue to watch just those 3 big factors: personal income, the sales tax that I talked about, and then also property tax revenues when we think about our real estate costs. One thing to think about as we look at the budget big picture is that growing deficit for the state, meaning the state's budget problem, quote unquote problem, from the LAO, this is a slide from the Legislative Analyst's Office, is that we have this, little couple $1 billion budget deficit concern that balloons up to an operating deficit of $27 billion in 23-24, and then, or I'm sorry, up to 30 billion in 28-29. So this what started out as a small deficit problem and then became a maneuver in terms of how the state was going to fund it. They are still looking at the best way to address those concerns, even though the revenues are up. And that is going to talk a little bit to how the state is using that Prop 98 guarantee. So one of the things that Prop 98 has built into it is what's called a spike in the guarantee, meaning if there is a huge jump that they weren't expecting that is above previous year, they attempt to capture that difference in a way to where it is not considered always going to be ongoing growth. It's seen as a one-time revenue shift that was above that typical pattern. And what that means is instead of 3.7 billion of additional money that could potentially be available to districts such as ourselves, they will be putting, they meaning the state, will be depositing money into that Prop 98 reserve that also ties to the district's 10% reserve maximum and the overall fiscal projections. One last thing that I want to talk about as we look at the state and then transition into the local impacts is attendance projections. So there has been talk about, as a state, a continual decline of students in terms of enrollment. That bottom graphic shows since 2019, the CBEDS certified student enrollment for each of the large districts, and I use large in air quotes, meaning Atascadero and Templeton are significantly smaller than us, but they are larger than, say, a Shandon, if you will. Ultimately, with the exclusion of San Luis Coastal, every one of the large districts in our county lost students. And there is a number of reasons for that. It could be movement out of state, movement to other public schools in our county, out of our county, private school, and so forth. But ultimately, there is this ebb and flow of students. However, the overall enrollment picture in the state as a whole is declining. So San Luis Coastal in this instance is an anomaly in the state, meaning most of the districts in the state have been experiencing decline in enrollment for 10 years, which I'll talk about that shortly. The picture on the top represents the projected average daily attendance. So we talk a lot about ADA and the percentage of income that we get for our students attending. And they did something a little bit different this year. They added transitional kindergarten expansion, meaning they are showing the projected growth as it relates just to transitional kindergarten, as it relates to the overall attendance picture. This is really important because you'll note that 25-26 year, that part of the graph is bigger than the other TK expansions, is because that is when we're looking at full implementation of transitional kindergarten, meaning we could have some 3-year-old students starting at the start of next school year based on that expansion. So the summary of the economic forecast is unemployment's up a little bit, county average is good. We are experiencing or looking at some sales tax revenues being down. However, personal income taxes are up. And the last thing that I'll talk about a little bit more in depth, I'll talk about on the dartboard, is that we are anticipating the COLA for 25-26 being reduced from where it currently is down to 2.46. So when budget development occurred, we used something called the School Services of California, or the SSC dartboard. And this is you built up to have a number of factors in it, from the Department of Finance's COLA estimate to what those implications could be as it relates to our revenues for the various grade spans. Ultimately, that 25-26 school year, you'll notice it is outlined in red. That's because the Department of Financing they have, along with School Services of California, FICMAT, and the other economists are saying that that number is actually going to be closer to 2.5. Right now, the LAO is estimating it at 2.46. However, all of those 3 out years that are highlighted in that yellow box, so for 26, 27, and 27, 28, will most likely change in January when the governor releases the governor's budget. Meaning our fiscal year kind of lies in 2 different governor budget years. And we will be updating that in January. One other thing to note of importance is that reduction from 2.93 down to 2.46 is actually an impact to our MYP, or multi-year projection, of $1.7 million, meaning that reduction in the out year will impact our budget by just under $2 million. One of the other things that does also impact our budget is attendance. So I talked a little bit about attendance and enrollment as a statewide average. And for our district, I've already talked about it, so I'll just really briefly go over. We did come in above what our projection was in June, meaning in June we had anticipated 110 student decline. However, our decline was only 26 students. So that was a positive or net positive budget swing for the district versus what our assumption was in terms of revenue. And another thing that I'd like to talk about is our unduplicated pupil percentage, or UPP, that dipped slightly from last year, which does impact our 3-year average. And we are anticipating a reduction of approximately 1.4 million in LCAP concentration funds, meaning that money that the state augments through LCFF for our students that are low socioeconomic status, language learners, foster homeless. We are going to have a slight dip in that concentration funds. You might be thinking, wow, that was a lot of stuff really quick. Here's the big one. 88% of our unrestricted general fund is spent on staff. Now, that is going to be personnel costs related to actual salaries. That is also going to include benefits, STIRS, and PERS payments, basically all of those costs associated with our people, meaning 88% of all of our unrestricted money goes to people. And that's important when we think about, as we hear about budget revenue decreases, where does that come out of? It limits how many people we can hire as in terms of employees, and it also impacts what we can do as it relates to compensation. So big changes, or changes in general in terms of the snapshot. We are going to continue watching that budget. Revenues and expenditures are going to change a little bit between now and second interim. And we are going to continually watch projections as it relates to the COLA, as well as hound our school sites and our families about the importance of attending. Because when our kiddos aren't in school, they're not learning. And the importance of attendance is not just that dollar sign, it's also those credits working towards a diploma, and really emphasizing the importance of attendance as it relates to making sure our kids learn to read in that K-3 band, or work towards that graduation credit if they're in high school, and all the grades in between. So when we look at our district budget as a 3-year average, meaning the MYP, multi-year projection, this is that document that kind of tells the whole story. You'll notice there is a red arrow at the top that has the 2 out-year COLAs in red, or boxed in red. That's because we know those are going to change. To what extent, we'll know a little bit more in January when the LAO finalizes its projections and we get that 25-26 dialed in. The 26-27 will still be a little bit of an unknown. As it relates to the yellow, this is our decrease in fund balance. So there was a question in the audit about deficit spending. Great question. This is the point where I'm going to talk about it because it has to do with our overall ending fund balance. And was it positive? Was it better? Or was it worse? And when I say worse, that means we spent a little bit more than we brought in. So there was a deficit. There are, however, some specific reasons as to why we would run a deficit. One being we had a bunch of one-time money that came in during the pandemic. We have used that money very strategically as it relates to intervention teachers, additional support staff, counseling services, all of those things we did to help students be successful. We didn't want to blow all that money at one time. So we are intentionally spending that excess down with a specific spending plan. The other element is the committed funds for the LCAP, meaning there are special monies that are tied to our supplemental and concentration funds that can only be spent for LCAP purposes. What we have been doing is saving a little bit of extra in one year so that we can spend more in the following year. And then that year where we save, we're spending that one-time money and then spending a little bit more LCAP money in the out year. So it is part of an overall spending plan. The other area that we are seeing some deficit spending, or what is actually equating as a general fund contribution to special education, is that committed funds for future special ed. Ultimately, when the board took action back in June to build the budget, they had set aside, you as a board had set aside $9.7 million. You'll look up there now and go, wait a minute, it only says 8.4. That's because we've actually been spending that set aside on some very expensive student placements in non-public school. We have also been upgrading some additional facilities that are tied to special education. So it has been extremely purposeful spending of that special education money. So good news, that spoiler, that green square is the ending fund balance, meaning when I talked of the positive certification, that's that green square. So that 3% mandated reserve, that is going to be the requirement by the state for us to have a certain amount of money put aside. And I know the question's coming, so I'm going to head it off. Ms. Martin, 3% reserve is only 2 weeks of payroll, meaning that 3% reserve only covers 2 weeks of our employee's salary. So that reserve for future economic uncertainty is that little bit of a cushion above the 3% reserve. And under the state's current system, for our current fiscal year, we can have up to 10% of reserves and still be under that threshold of what we're allowed to carry over. Again, positive certification for our current plus 2 years, including the mandated reserve as well as the reserve for economic uncertainty. And that is due in part because of the continued stewardship of you as a board. And while I want to sing some amazing praises to Director Siebert right now and the business department, this would not be possible. Positive certification would not be possible without the efforts of the business department. It's also your guidance in terms of the fiscal stewardship that makes that possible. So the support from you to allow the business department to do its job. Again, thank you to Rhonda and the team. So moving forward, between now and March, we'll keep watching those economic indicators, analyze everything that we can, and then wait patiently for the governor to release his budget in January. And then the board will have an opportunity tonight to ask some questions related to the awesome budget book, first interim budget book, and then hopefully approve the first interim budget.
Great. Thank you. That was a lot of information packed in there. Does anyone from the board have questions for almost Dr. Eichberger?
One step closer.
Anyone?
I do.
Yes?
Go ahead.
Ms. Trustee Naomi Bernier?
Thank you so much. in regards to monies, do we have a grant writer for the school district that writes just exclusive grants?
We do not have an exclusive grant writer. However, we do have some amazing coordinators and directors who regularly write grants for the district. So, one of the items a little bit later, we'll be talking about local food, and our food service department wrote a grant to get additional state money to purchase local food items. When we think about our amazing CTE facilities in terms of our culinary arts facility and our patient care facilities, those were written as a competitive grant, and that amazing facility complex was paid for half from grant CTE money. So while we don't have one person that writes grants specifically, we do have a number of talented employees that write grants that are pertinent to their programs.
Have we thought of looking in that area?
I don't know that we have a job description for a grant writer. That would be something I would have to look into and get back to you.
Yeah, mine, I don't know, maybe more of a comment. As everyone learn, I'm kind of a numbers guy. Numbers just speak to me. So a couple of things that jump out, I'd just like to mention is one is the attendance rate. So I look at it as there's a 6.5% absentee. I guess the flip side, rather than say 93.5 attendance, which if I understand is a little bit lower than normal. And when I ran those numbers, granted, we're never going to have 100% attendance, but it does amount, so it's like $40,500 a day. So it's just something I'm thinking, obviously something, however we're going to work on it, I think we need to take note of it, that it's probably something worth, I don't know what's a norm for or whatever, but it's probably on the high side right now. So there's some loss of revenues there. And a big one I've expressed to Dr. Fawcett a lot is the attendance. I understand it is down over the last decade.
You mean the enrollment?
Yeah, I'm sorry, the enrollment. Yeah, the enrollment, we've lost like over 1,000 students in the last 10 years. And granted, we can adjust budgets through laying people off and having fewer teachers. It's like, I personally would rather see that direction change and see if we can keep more of them. I understand it's a state issue, but I know when I was campaigning, I was beginning to do a little bit of work and trying to find out why is this? Is it just our kids are leaving the area? And I think I found the beginnings that it's different, that the enrollment of the privates, the charters, the homeschoolings are just soaring up. So I was talking to some of those organizations, just asking them, why are your enrollments going up so much? And the number one thing, I'm sure there's other things they were saying, was just parent rights. They weren't happy with things the way they were going. And I'd like to do whatever my part to just bring it to the attention. What can we do to make it better so that these people don't want to leave? Granted, we got options, but we've lost a lot of students, and I don't want to keep shrinking our district and just keep dropping our teachers and laying them off. So just a comment. I like numbers and statistics, and those
Okay, so the
spoke to
way
me.
this works is we're going to ask questions right now, and then we're going to open it up for public comment, and then we'll make comments.
Okay.
Okay, just so you know. So
There was a couple underlying questions in there
Yes,
that I'm
yes.
gonna
I
parcel
can
out.
restate it.
One is the idea of our current ADA, or our actual student attendance. That idea of 93.5%, which is what we use for our assumptions, being really low. If we go back to pre-pandemic, it is low, meaning before the pandemic, our average ADA was somewhere around 95 or 96% given the year. So it was solid ADA. Then COVID happened, and our enrollment out of COVID was closer to 92%. So we have seen some improvement from that really negative enrollment time or ADA time. However, we're not back to where we would like to be, meaning we would love to be back to that 96% ADA, which does equate to quite a bit of revenue. The other kind of question was, where are our students going? And one of the things that we did was look at, by student. In Aries, we have our student accounting system that tracks current school, where'd they come from, and then where'd they go if we know. Meaning there are some students that leave without a trace and they become no-shows and then they just drop. We don't know what happens to them. That means there is not another school district that has claimed those students. So they could have moved out of the country and the new country didn't request CUMES. They could have moved out of the state. The different state doesn't care about California CUMES. Number of reasons. Ultimately, when we look at since 22-23, so since students have been coming back from COVID, we have actually had, I'll throw some numbers. We had a net positive change of 442 students from public schools in the county, meaning we had some growth. Even though we're having declining enrollment, that means we have less kids signing up to come to school. We did have more people come to our district than left going to other public schools in the county. Same can be said for out of state. We had 65 students come to us as a net swing versus those that went out of state in that 3-year span. Out of the country, we gained 23 students more than we lost. In terms of private school, we actually, in that 3-year period, gained 99 more students than we lost to private school. Out of district unknown, we gained more students where we didn't know where they came from than we lost to the tune of 137. And the two areas where we actually did lose students was we lost more students because of disciplinary action or truancy, meaning they were SARBed and sent to Loma Vista Community School or expelled. We lost some students there, and then we did actually have some students leave the district because of either medical or adult ed reasons, meaning home hospital wasn't working, so we had more students leave because of that. But ultimately, when we think back to that 10-year attendance and our enrollment, it has flattened out in the last couple years. So one of the things we're doing as part of our budgetary assumptions is instead of using that 10-year average, we're using a 5-year average. And you might say, well, but you lost a lot of years in those COVID years. We did throw out that COVID anomaly year and used an average of the other years as part of. So it's closer to using a 4-year average. But ultimately, that is hopefully going to, narrow our projections in terms of what we anticipate for our student numbers, because that is quite a swing as it relates to revenue districts or revenue for the district. When we think about those targeted reductions of staff, we have been very fortunate that we have used temporary positions and attrition to where we have not had to go through that reduction in force process, meaning having lived through it myself when there was 246. Yeah, we have been very strategic in terms of scaling appropriately based on our enrollment projections.
All right. Is anyone else from?
I have a question. Thank you. When we talk about the demographics of the population that's here in the Central Coast, being in real estate, I find more that are retirees coming here because there are no industries, no market to, jobs and all that. So I can see correlations in regards to a depreciation in our, attend or enrollment. So I can understand that, but I'm curious to know if we've done anything on our census, to figure out, is it because we don't really have an industry here other than maybe some education, healthcare system. It's not like in the Bay Area or Southern California, high tech and all that. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious to see if there's anything that we could find and figure out, because to your point, Mike, I just find there's got to be other reasons, and I that's what I kind of see.
Excellent question. And I have a tiny bit of an answer and then an expansion. So one of the things that we're seeing is also a declining birth rate,
Yeah.
meaning that is impacting the number of kindergarten students. When we have less students enrolling in kindergarten than we have graduating, that means by default we're going to have a decline. Another thing that's impacting is just the overall aging population. So that kind of pendulum of a population, as well as in our area, looking at the increase in number of vacation rentals. So we are a desirable place, right? We live where people choose to vacation. And ultimately, a lot of those properties that could be, you know, for students end up becoming something that's purchased as a second property and rented out. One of the things that Dr. Fawcett, myself, Director Siebert, and also Executive Director Stenson attend is a Central Coast Economic Forum. And it is not specific to education. It's hosted at the Madonna Inn, and they look at all of the industry sectors. So how is farm labor? How is the tech industry and so forth? And they look at those overall projections, and one of the highest ranking issues is affordable housing, not just for our education sector, but as a county as a whole. And that is where we are watching all of the projected developments and looking at what is our anticipated student generation rate and how is it actually manifesting. So one example is the Pismo Terrace development that's on the corner of Five Cities Drive and 4th Street right off the freeway. That student yield, 8 kiddos, meaning living in that new complex, it only generated 8 students. Meaning by areas, we can look at those addresses and figure out exactly how many kiddos. And that was well below what we had anticipated for a student generation rate, meaning we were anticipating closer to 30 or 40 students based on the number of units. And that just speaks to how the housing is not necessarily favorable for our families and our staff.
Building now, the 3-story things, they're not affordable for families.
All right, we have a lot on our agenda tonight, and declining enrollment is an issue that we can all debate for many, many moons. I think Mr. Eichberger put the nail on the head. Top of mind for the whole country is declining birth rate for the whole country. Okay, a lot of, not just California, a lot of other states are having declining enrollment because babies are not being born, period. Anyways, I do want to address any other questions from the first interim if any of you have questions. Seeing none, we're going to open it up to public comment. Would anyone in the audience like to make public comment on the first interim financial report? Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment to the audience, bring it back to the board for comments. Ms. Pham.
I would like to encourage everyone to take a snapshot or go into the website or LucyMR website and look at the Agenda 14 in the executive summary. Study it because it has a load of information in regards to what this district has to go through. I mean, most people think, oh my gosh, lottery, you know, we must get tons of money from lottery. But if you look carefully at this executive summary, we only get $201 for every student, and we have about 9,600 students. So it only comes out to almost 2 million, which is pennies. So there's nothing. So the Agenda 14 is packed full of information. So I encourage everyone to spread the word and just look at it and help us, you know, understand and, you know, and just be participant in us helping our children.
Any other comments?
I just want to revisit that positive certification because we talk about it a lot and why it's important. And just to reiterate, because we now have passed Measure H, that positive certification is really going to help us with our bond rating when we come to start doing our issuance, right? So that's why, I mean, we amplify that a lot. I just wanted to say that allows us to make make the best use of the community's dollars for our kids and for education. So thank you for that. Thank you to Director Siebert.
And I spent a lot of time going over the first interim too, and I just want to make one comment that if you read the executive summary, and you don't have to read the 3-inch binder, just the executive summary will give you a good snapshot. But in the increase in special education, so culturally we're seeing a lot of shifts since the pandemic. One of them is, parents are keeping their kids home from school when they have the littlest of sniffle, where before they push them out the door. Another thing is the increase in students that are identified with special education, where it's rising exponentially every year. And now 68% of the costs of special ed is coming out of our general fund, and it's not being supplemented by the federal government. So we have about 17% of our kids have some sort of special ed qualification, whether it's speech or other kind of help, and that's 19% of our budget just for special ed. A lot. Anyways, seeing no other comments, I am looking for a motion on this item, please, on item number 14.
Move approval fiscal year 2024-2025 first interim financial report.
Second. It's been moved by Stewart, seconded by Pham, to approve item number 14.
Stewart,
Aye.
Yes.
Naomi Bernier, Fuller,
Yes.
Kendall,
Yes.
Santos, yes, Martin.
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. Item number 15. Thank you, Mr. Eichberger. Item number 15 is report Student Learning California School Dashboard.
Thank you, President Martin. It is our pleasure this evening to be here to present the update on the California School Dashboard. The board may recall in past years, we usually do this in January, but the state has taken action to move the release date of the dashboard up over time. So next year you can anticipate this report hopefully in November if the state meets their target. I'm joined this evening by Curriculum Director Brett Gimlin, who's going to take us through most of this report, and also Executive Director Ashley McCall, who will hit the highlights for the high school, and then we'll be back for questions. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Gimlin.
Thank you, Ms. Dixon. Good evening, everyone. So I'll be going over the California School Dashboard, and this is probably my fourth or fifth time going over this. We had a little break during COVID, but we're back again. This is 3 years in a row now. So the California School Dashboard presents 11 measures of school success. The ones that we'll talk about tonight extensively are the 6 state measures, which I'll go over here in a second. There are also 5 local measures, and when those get presented, basically they just get presented with a met, not met, or not met 2+ years. And we have met all of those measures for our district. So jumping in, these are the 6 areas that we'll be talking about. English, language, arts, math, and science is our state tests, which I always have to look up the acronym for that. That's the California Assessment of Performance and Progress. I always say CASP, so I have to look it up every time. And then these other areas, which we'll go over here in a second. Chronic absenteeism, one thing to note on that is that's a K-8 indicator. It doesn't apply to our high schools, although we do track our attendance at our high schools. And then college and career and graduation rate are specific to high school. So this is probably the most important slide here. So if you're going to pay attention, this is the one to pay attention to for sure. We have these dials up here in the colors from red all the way to blue. Blue meaning the best and red meaning the worst. And basically to determine the colors on the dashboard, we use a 5x5 grid, and there's a separate one for each of the indicators. And so looking on the left side, you see level very high down to very low. So depending on what the indicator is, they have cut points for percentages or measures on the state test, numbers that determine those cut lines between those levels. So that's one area that determines what color an indicator will be. And then if you look along the top, that's about the change. So you can be in a certain level as you go across, like you're a medium level, But depending on if you grow from one year to the next, that can kick you one direction or the other in terms of the color. So medium level, and then if you increase, you kick from a yellow to a green. Okay, so the first area, CASP, said what it meant already, so I'm not going to say it again. English language arts, math, and science. This is what you'll see if you log into the dashboard. See the colors, and then you see 2.1 points above standard on the English language arts, and then that maintained 1.6. So that relates to that 5x5, which I'll just show you in just a minute here. And we've got math, which we'll go into in a second, and you'll notice that there's no color on science. This is the first year reporting on the dashboard for science, so they don't assign a color, but they do have the points below standard there. So, okay, so this is English language arts, 2.1 points above standard, which puts us at the medium level, and we were at a maintained. Last year we were at a green, so if you see that little arrow jumping, that means last year we were at a green and we jumped back to the yellow. Even though we actually went up, maintained it says, but we went up by 1.6 points. And so let me go back real quick. So the equity report right there, where you see the colors and the numbers there, that's basically our subgroups. So when you're logged into the state dashboard and you click on that for view more details, that'll take you to a place where you'll see all the different subgroups and the different colors for those individual subgroups. So here's where our subgroups fall. In math, we were 41 points below standard. That was an increase from the prior year of 4.2 points. That puts us at the low level. And we, even though we increased, we stayed at a yellow. So you can see we jumped from a yellow to a yellow. If you look at our performance of our subgroups, you can see where they fall. Most of them at yellow. And long-term English learners, if you see in the red there, long-term English learners are a subgroup in the English learner subgroup, and this is the first year that they have been on the dashboard. So the LPAC, or the English Language Proficiency Assessment for California, measures progress from one year to the next on students that take the summative LPAC. So those are our English learners that have been identified as English learners, and we give them an assessment every single year called the summative LPAC to determine their progress from one level to the other. So in the LPAC, there are 6 levels, basically 1, 2 low, 2 high, 3 low, 3 high, and 4. And the hope is that students progress 1 level every year, which would make them progress out of being an English learner after 6 years. If they do not, they become a long-term English learner. 41.3% of our students were deemed to be making progress, and we declined by 7.7%. Now, keep in mind that this is a group that changes from year to year. So when we reclassify a student, they are no longer part of the English learner group. That's something important to keep in mind. And additionally, if you progress within the 1 level, you just don't jump to the next category, which would be too low. You're not deemed to be making progress, even though you technically did make progress. You just made it within a level. So. Okay, and this is where we fall on the dashboard. So we went from an orange to an orange. And then again, first year for the long-term English learner in this particular subgroup. Okay, chronic absenteeism. So Mr. Eichberger talked quite a bit about attendance. We get into attendance in this area. But when we're looking at chronic absenteeism, basically what makes a student chronically absent is that they miss 10% or above. So a student that misses 18 days during the school year if they attended for 180. So 12.2% of our students were chronically absent last year. That seems like a lot, but that is a fall of decline of 10.5% from the year before. And when we get to show you the county comparables, you'll see that that ranks number 1 in our county in terms of chronically absent students. So quite a change here. We jumped from the orange to the yellow. That was a decline, a significant decline. And then if you look at our subgroups, you can see where they fall as well. Most of them being in the yellow. Added this slide in. This is attendance. This is not just students that are chronically absent. These are the average number of days absent for every student in the school district. So when we compare ourselves to the state has 13.1 days absent. That's student across all the grades, 13.1 days absent during the school year. In Lucia Mar, 10 days absent. So we're better than the state average and better than the state average across every single level. And you can see typically kids miss a lot more in the lower grades. They tend to be more prone to colds. And then at the upper grades, they miss a lot more as well. I'm not sure if it has anything to do with colds. Okay, suspension rate. So suspension rate is very prone to small changes. So you can go up by a very small amount, and that will change your color. So we were 4% suspended at least one day. That's across the district. And we maintained, went up by 0.2%. So that took us from green to yellow. We're in the medium range there in terms of level. But if you look at our 3-year suspension rate, it's not much of a change from one year to the next. So 4.1% to 3.8%. We're basically hovering around that 4%, and we have been for the last 3 years. And this is where our subgroups fall. Okay, moving on to college and career readiness indicator. I'm going to hand this over to Miss Ashley McCall.
Thank you so much and good evening. I'm just going to briefly go over a couple of the 9 through 12 indicators. The first one being college and career readiness, or the CCI measure, as we commonly refer to it as. So here you're going to see that about 50% of our students are college and career ready or prepared, as measured by multiple measures that are included in this. So this is things like completing a CTE pathway, A through G completion, taking college courses, taking an AP test. There are multiple measures within this measure that decide whether or not a student is considered to be prepared. So we have maintained that by a slight increase of 1.2. And if we look here at the dashboard, as Mr. Gimlin has explained, that is going to put us at the yellow point because we maintained. When you're looking across our subgroups, these are the numbers here. And then this slide is also important because when we're talking about that number, about 50% of our students being college and career ready or prepared is the other way that they put it. According to the state, we're slightly above there, or well above the state, above some of our peers in the county, but below a couple as well. I think it's also important to note here that it's a very complicated measure, as I was explaining. There are multiple ways to achieve this, CTE pathways, A through G completion, and a number of combination of those. And we have recently figured out an even better way to more accurately report the opportunities that are been provided to our students and the things that they are accomplishing. So we're expecting a pretty good uptick in this for next year. The other big indicator for our high school students is the graduation rate. So we have a very steady and high graduation rate of 92.6%. We maintain, falling only slightly by 0.3%, putting us at the green. There is the 5x5 grid. Last year we were yellow and now we have slid over to the green, which is always nice to see. And here is the data by subgroup. And then I'm going to hand it back to Mr. Gimlin for some county comparisons and summary.
I always feel bad about leaving this to the very end. I know this is what a lot of times people want to see. So basically I have all the data here. You can see the colors for each of the indicators. So if you look in the columns, you've got chronic absenteeism all the way over to English Centered Progress. And then the school sites or districts, California, Lucia Mar, and all of our surrounding districts. The one I highlighted earlier was chronic absenteeism. So you can see our 12.2%, although, higher than, of course, we would like it. We would love for kids to attend school every day and no one to be chronically absent. In terms of comparing to our surrounding districts and California, we're doing pretty well in that particular area. Grad rate, as Ms. McCall said, in the green, college and career in the yellow, suspension rate in the yellow. And then you can see the English language arts and math with the distance from standard measures. and we're in the yellow in that area, and our English learner progress. So you won't see this when you log into the dashboard. This is Mr. Gimlin's numbers here. So I'm presenting this all together. When you log into the dashboard, you basically can go from the state to each individual school district, and then you can gather your numbers together. But this is what you'll see when you log in, and that's the overview for Lucia Mar. So with that, we'll wrap up, and we'll take any questions or comments that you may have.
Does anyone from the board have questions on the dashboard? The first look at our dashboard for this year. Questions? Ms. Amy Bernier?
Thank you so much. What's being done regarding absenteeism?
We are doing a lot of things regarding absenteeism. We have a very routine procedure when a student is absent using Parent Square, which is our parent notification system, to alert the families that it has happened, give them a chance to explain the absence if they haven't done so already. We have our amazing secretarial team is tracking down absent students, finding out what the reason is. It is an illness. Okay, that makes sense. Of course, we can deal with that. If it's something other than that, we start to implement various interventions to make sure that students are engaged and excited to come to school. We also can go through the Student Attendance Review Board, or SARB process. Usually before we get that, we do a pre-SARB engagement with families to say, you are starting to rack up a lot of absences. We've sent you some letters to let you know that you're really ticking those absences up. Come in and meet with the administrator, sometimes the counselor, and what can a plan be to help you get to school? If that doesn't fix the problem, the students continue to be absent, then we do take some families to the Student Attendance Review Board and do some intervention and engagement at that level. We're very pleased to see that attendance is continuing to improve. It's kind of unusual to see when you see a decline, those two of those indicators on the dashboard that we want to see going down. Chronic absenteeism is one of them, and suspension is the other. So it's good news that we're decreasing in chronic absenteeism, and we anticipate that that should continue over the years to come.
Can you add a little bit about the focus that we have with our principals and through the business office, and then as well as communication home as well?
Oh, yes. So we've been working with our principals throughout the year, at the beginning of last year even, and this year, to highlight the importance of coming to school, connecting through data confirmation and all of the different things we do to make sure the kids are enrolled. We have appropriate contact information, and really working both from the district office to share news and importance about why coming to school is critical for student success. I think it's obvious to most, but maybe not all families. Some of the data on what routine absenteeism can cause in terms of student achievement that comes out from our district information and also from our school sites. And we're seeing positive benefits from some of those things as well.
And secondly, and what excuses do parents give or students give regarding absentee?
It absolutely depends on the student. Most typically, we would hear about illness or something of that nature. To get more specifics, we would need to bring a report back on that, but there are a wide variety of possible excuses that parents can have for a student missing school.
Any other questions from the board on the dashboard for Mr. Gimlin? Seeing none, I'm going to open it up to public comment. This is a report only. Does anyone have public comment on this item? Item number 15, Student Learning California School Dashboard. Seeing no movement in the audience, I'm going to close it to public comment, bring it back to the board for any comments.
I would just say it's great to see it's moving in a good direction, because obviously the absenteeism, the report I think says $65 a day per student, and chronic absenteeism is 10% of the days missed. Not only are they missing, their main goal here is to get educated, but it has a certain impact on their budget and finances too, and they're gone all the time.
Well,
we keep moving it that way. It's great if we can keep it going.
Thank you.
To quote one of our famous educators, Debbie Dorney, miss school, miss out. And that's what we need to make the culture be. I will say, I work at a high school, and since COVID, parents are keeping their kids home a little bit more easily than they used to, because they're just concerned about spreading germs, and we encouraged people to stay home when they were ill during the pandemic, and now we're trying to, change the culture and get them to come back to school. And so, and with high schoolers, it's very difficult too, because they have these things called cars that they get to drive. So, all right. Well, thank you very much. This does not require a vote. It's just a report only. So we're going to move on to items scheduled for discussion, possible action, approval. This is the second reading of our new courses for 2025-26. We've seen this before. Does anyone from the board have any questions, or would you like to present it again for us, Ms. Dixon?
I won't present in depth, thank you, President Martin, but I will just say that, again, this is a second reading. We've had a variety of exciting new courses that are considering being offered for next year. The majority of these are in the career technical education area, either expanding or adding additional pathways for our students, and then also some wonderful advanced placement courses being provided for our students to select from as well. So again, this is a second reading. We won't go in depth, but I'm happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Does anyone from the board have any questions on this item?
I just have a quick one. Are any of these courses available to the adult ed?
None of these courses are adult ed courses. However, we do have a lot of exciting developments coming in adult ed that hopefully we'll be able to share with you in future reports. These are all of these happen to be for our high schools.
Besides our kazoo band.
Correct. We are very excited to, at some point, bring the kazoo band to life for you, Ms. Santos.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board on this item?
Yeah, I do have one.
Mr. Fuller.
In the little section there under the advanced games and simulation, there's a little part in there that says this course also builds on an understanding of responsible and ethical use of computers, while also touching on subjects that include cultural, ethic, and gender understanding. What is the gender understanding?
This is what types of games appeal to what types of gamers. So some games that are developed tend to be more, tend to have traditionally that there's boys that typically like to play them. Some are more interesting to girls, and some are sort of cross any type of gender. And so looking into what appeals to what sort of consumer is one of the things that they'll study in designing games.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, I'm going to open it up to public comment. This is item number 16, approved second reading, new courses for 2025-26. Seeing no movement in the audience, I'm going to close it to public comment, bring it back to the board for any comments, discussion. Mr. Stewart.
Quick one. I recently ran into Adam Verdon, who was singing her praises, Dr. Fawcett, and was really excited about the aviation program that we're bringing to this pathway. So
We're excited too, and that's all the work of Coordinator Kristen Anderson's work. So, thank you.
Okay. I do need a vote on this. It's the second reading.
move approval, second reading, new courses for the 2025-2026 school year.
Second. It's been moved by Stewart, second by Candell. Roll call vote, please. Stewart.
Aye.
Candell?
Yes.
Santos? Yes. Baum?
Yes.
Mayor Bernier?
Yes.
Fuller?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Moving on to item number 17, approval contract agreement with Cream Co. LLC for local high-quality American Grass-Fed Association certified beef products. Mr. Eichberger, your variety is just amazing tonight.
Beef, it's what's for dinner.
Yes.
I am old enough to remember those commercials. Ultimately, this is an agreement that allows us to source locally grown beef for our school sites, meaning the food service department participated in a local food grant, and one of the things was to purchase local produce, and now we are going to be able to buy local beef as well. So when you think of Berryman strawberries and blueberries being served to our students, fresh veggies from our local farms, we are now going to be augmenting and adding local beef to some of our menu items. So when you see that locally grown beef on the school district menu, that is from Cream Co. Limited or LLC.
As long as you're here, do you mind introducing our food service director, since I don't know if the board all knows that she's not?
Yes, if you want to give us a big wave, Danica. Our food service director has been with the district over a year now, just surpassed a year with the district, and has not only her bachelor's degree but also her master's degree in nutrition, and spent time as a childhood nutritionist. So we are extremely lucky to have someone with that type of experience working with our food service leads to develop those scratch made meals. One of them was developed by, I want to say it was Oceano Elementary, since they were here earlier today, and it was Berea. And it was phenomenal. I did have an opportunity to sample, and I do also know that Pozole is one of the high school favorites. However, they do make a number of other scratch made items, and they will now be adding local beef to that as their ingredient list.
Does anyone have any questions from the board on the approval of the contract agreement for Creamco providing local certified beef products? Seeing none, I'm going to open it up to the audience. Does anyone from the audience like to provide public comment on this item? Item number 17, the contract agreement for beef products. Seeing none, I'm going to close it to public comment, bring it back to the board for comment.
Well, one comment I'd make, or maybe even two, I'm the new guy. Generally, I think we consider it a good practice getting multiple bids, and I just noticed on this one we only have one bid. Talked about it a little bit, but I don't know if there's ways we can try and seek more at times. I mean, I think generally the public thinks that's a good practice. And then one is, maybe I should have been at the questions, but I was a little bit concerned on this one. I was unsure. At one point, it said we were seeking that we may seek directly to procure from a partner with businesses that procure goods and services from a diverse set of vendors, contractors, and our local businesses, especially those owned by people of color. I have no prejudices. To me, everybody's just a citizen. I don't look at it that way. So I thought, oh, if I had the best business and I don't have color, do I not get looked at? And the reason I wanted to make the comment, because then just a little bit later in there under the anti-discrimination, it said it's the policy of the district that in connection with all work performed under contracts, there be no discrimination against any employee engaged in blah, blah, blah. So one time it's saying there's no discrimination, and one time it's saying we do discriminate and look for something. So I don't know. So just a little unclear to me at that point, which it was. So I guess it's not a question, but I don't know if there's a comment.
Say that we don't discriminate. Say that overrides everything.
Well, that's my view, and that's what it kind of said on the anti-discrimination, but then it said we do seek to favor certain groups.
Well,
So
since there was only one group here, there was nothing to favor. So,
well, that's true. That'd be one good reason to only get one bid. So there's no.
They tried getting two bids.
They did try getting two
Well, they did, yeah, but apparently what I saw is the other one didn't come in, or I don't know why they didn't.
Sometimes people don't respond to the paperwork.
Mr. Eichenberger, how do we put out the call for bids?
So it depends on the scope of the item. When we think about our full scope food bid that we do as a consortium, meaning we are one of the groups in the county that are part of that bid process. It was Cisco that I couldn't remember earlier today. Ultimately, that bid goes out in newspapers. It gets shared over multiple forums on a limited scope bid where we are looking for a local produced product. The parameters are much more tailored to a local food company. So for instance, when we think about berry production and strawberries, we want to be able to buy from someone that is in a county close to us, meaning we're not shipping in strawberries from Mexico. We are buying strawberries from the Berryman in Santa Maria and San Luis Obispo counties. So there are those same requirements in terms of putting it in the newspaper and requesting bids from anyone that qualifies. However, with school district contracts, there are some specific requirements as it relates to insurance, the discrimination language that is coming to us from the state, meaning that is a part of any of our programs where we are spending state or federal money. We have to abide by both the state and federal guidelines. That does include the discrimination language, and then for this particular item, it's also looking at those locally produced items. So we wouldn't advertise and say the Bay Area or San Diego County for beef, because that's not local. We're really trying to find something or source something that is in a contiguous county of us.
Okay. Any other comments from the board on this item? Ms. Vanier.
So do we want to set this item aside? Maybe table it for.
We can vote on it. If you don't want to approve it, you can vote no.
I appreciate that we are providing high quality food for our students.
And local.
And that limits the number of vendors, I'm sure. So I think this is, I am an enthusiastic yes on this item.
I'm sorry. How long is the contract?
This is for a 1 year
So
procurement.
next year, maybe the word gets out and more people will put bids in. So.
And just because we have an amount, it is truly a not to exceed, meaning if when we start purchasing beef from them, we decide that the quality of it isn't better than one of the other vendors that we currently have, we can choose not to purchase more.
Personally trust our head of food service to make those decisions. I'm looking for a motion on this item, item number 17.
I'll move approval. Contract agreement with Cream Company LLC for local high quality American Grass-Fed Association certified beef products.
Second.
Moved by Candell, second by Stewart. Approve item number 17. Roll call vote, please.
Kendall?
Yes.
Stewart?
Aye.
Santos?
Yes.
Baum?
Yes.
Naomi Vernier?
No.
Fuller?
No.
Martin?
Yes, motion passes 5-2. Item number 18, we are having a public hearing, Assembly Bill 1200, AB 1200, public disclosure of collective bargaining agreement between Lucia Mar Unified School District, LMUSD, and the California School Employees Association, CSEA. Mr. Eichberger.
Yes, this is a fun two-part item where I only cover part of it, and then Dr. Handy will cover the second portion. So this evening before you is the AB 1200 disclosure. So back in 1991, the state said if you are going to be providing compensation increases, we want you to show that fiscal impact over your multi-year budget. So we are required to send that AB 1200 notice to the County Office of Education, where the county superintendent reviews the AB 1200 disclosure and then provides the district with an accompanying letter that discusses any concerns they may have or highlights the fact that this particular budget was in fact accounted for. When you read the disclosure statement from Dr. Brescia, it does state that there's no increase to the budget because the district did set up a 5% liability for salaries and benefits during the 23-24 unaudited actuals, meaning even though it is currently 24-25 school year, we did set up an actual line item accounting for that 5% expenditure. So the full letter from Dr. Brescia is in there for your perusing, but ultimately this is an item that does require a public hearing to allow anyone from the public or the audience to share their opinion related to the fiscal impact to the district.
Does anyone on the board have any questions for Mr. Eichberger on this item? Seeing none, I'm going to open the public hearing. It is 9:03. If anyone in the audience would like to come forward and offer public comment on this public hearing of Assembly Bill 1200, AB 1200, public disclosure of collective bargaining agreement between Lucia Mar Unified School District, LMUSD, and the California School Employees Association, CSEA. Seeing no movement in the audience, I'm going to close the public hearing at 9:04. And we'll move on to item number 19. This is Dr. Handy, approval tentative agreement TA between the Lucia Mar Unified School District, LMUSD, and the California School Employees Association, CSEA, Chapter 275 successor agreement for 2023 through 2026.
Thank you, President Martin. As Mr. Eichberger just shared, we entered into a tentative agreement with CSEA on November 7th, resolving the successor negotiations from July 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2026. The agreement was ratified by CSEA membership on the 21st, and the full agreement is attached to this memo, but I'll highlight some highlights. Article 2, miscellaneous, the current practice regarding new employee orientations was captured in writing. So for the public to know, typically every Wednesday after a board meeting, we welcome all of the people who are on the personnel action to join us either in this room or the LEC, and we highlight some of their the great things about Lucia Mar and also their rights as employees in our district. Article 4, hours of employment. Language was modified to clarify and expand additional hours to assignments to all classified employee positions. So throughout, you'll notice reorganization and highlighting information. CSEA is making an effort to streamline language so there are not as many cutouts. And so this is an area where you can see looking at transfers and information related to kind of apply to everyone. Article 5, wages. This is the big one. Retroactive to July 1, the salary schedule shall increase by 5%. The parties agreed to form a committee to review and make recommendations for changes to Article 6 career placements, and additional details were added to the reclassification guidelines. And beginning in the 25-26 school year, the parties will initiate participation in the state classified school assistance employees summer assistance program. So we're going to have a lot more information on that. For our employees, we'll be giving them notice this week about that news if the board approves this agreement. Article 7, holidays. Juneteenth was added as a holiday for classified employees officially in the agreement. And Monday holidays for those members who are work Tuesday through Saturday will be observed on Saturday preceding the holiday. So there were a couple of options there, but through conversation, this is something that is actually a really great benefit for our employees who work Tuesday through Friday to just know. I will highlight that, oh gosh, his name is escaping me at this moment. Doug. Thank you, Doug. Doug really just said, it's nice when our families have that 3-day weekend to have the weekend with them, not necessarily Tuesday after, and that really resonated. Article 9, leaves. A one-time enrollment period in the catastrophic leave bank shall be open for all members for a period of 60 days. So typically employees have to choose whether they're going to be a part of this bank within the first 60 days of their employment. And after that, they can't, the option is gone. So we're going to have a one-time enrollment. That'll basically be January 2nd to March 3rd. And a big shift, which our employees will be notified of, is a shift from the sub-deduct model to a 50-50 model for employees who've exhausted other paid leave. So to simplify for our public and for those at the table, an employee, whether they have a substitute or not, determines what their compensation will be when they're absent and they've exhausted leave. And so now whether they have a substitute or not, they'll be deducted 50%. Additionally, throughout the document, updates are made to language from employee to bargaining unit member. Our poor labor partners have to suffer my English teacher history and formatting. So there's some general formatting changes for ease of readership and understanding. And then just other, again, reorganization of the leaves, the transfer in article, and an update to discipline to align with board policy. So as Mr. Eichberger shared, the AB 1200 disclosure was approved by our county superintendent, Dr. Brescia, and I serve at the board's leisure to answer any questions, and we request that you approve this tentative agreement, long awaited, between the CMR Unified School District and the Classified School Employees Association.
Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Handy regarding the TA? Seeing none, I'm going to open it up to public comment. Would anyone in the audience like to share public comment on this item, the tentative agreement between Lucia Mar and CSEA Chapter 275? Seeing no movement, I'm going to close the public comment, bring it back to the board for comment. I'll just say for all of us, we're glad that this is buttoned up. As soon as you can notify those employees about their back pay and their increases, the happier they all will be. I did get the letter from Dr. Brescia saying we have the money to pay it, so let's get on it. So congratulations to CSEA, a well-earned compensation increase for all. I do need a motion and a second on this, though.
Move approval, tentative agreement between the Lucia Mar Unified School District and the California School Employees Association, chapter number 275, successor agreement for the 2023 through the 2026 years.
I second.
It's been moved by Stewart, second by Naomi Bernier. Roll call vote, please.
Stewart?
Aye.
Naomi Bernier?
Yes.
Fuller?
Yes.
Kendall?
Yes.
Santos?
Yes.
Fahm?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Take that back to that union and let them know we all agree and it's time to get them their pay. Okay, we're on to item number 20, approval, annual organization of the Board of Education. Dr. Fawcett, you're on.
All right. Thank you, President Martin. This is going to be a heavy lift for you guys, so here we go. According to Education Code, Section 35143 and AB 2449, the Governing Board organizational meeting must take place on or after the second Friday in December following an election. In years when there is no election, the same time frame applies. As you know, there are several routine but important actions that are part of this organizational procedure. And so we'll walk through each one of them one at a time. And I'll guide you through the voting process. And so just a few things to keep in mind as we walk through this. First and foremost, when we get down to electing the officers and other roles within the district, you can nominate yourself. Someone else on the board can nominate you. It does not take a second. So there's no second motion for the nominations. And then when voting for positions, if there's two or more candidates, board members must call out the name of the candidate they're supporting. And again, I'll remind you again when we get down to that part of the agenda. So before we get started, are there any questions?
I just want to confirm that items, before we get to the job titles of the board, that these first items 1 through 4 require motion second.
They do.
Okay.
That's correct. So, number 1, adoption of the previous actions of the Board of Education. It's recommended that the board adopt as policy and regulation of the Board of Education all previous actions taken.
I'm looking for a motion.
Move adoption of previous actions for the Board of Education.
Moved by Stewart, second by Santos. Roll call vote, please.
Stewart?
Aye.
Santos?
Yes.
Fahm?
Yes.
Naomi Bernier?
Yes.
Fuller?
Yes.
Kendall?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Item number 2.
Okay, designation of authorized representatives. It's recommended that the superintendent, me, Paul Fawcett, be designated as the authorized representative of the Board of Education, assigned to perform all duties and execute all documents as outlined and directed by the statutes and by policies and regulations of the Board of Education, including authority to certify applications for categorical federal and state funds, plus any other public law programs approved by the governing board.
Move approval of the recommendations of the designation of authorized representatives.
Second. Moved by Stewart, second by Santos. Roll call vote, please.
Stewart?
Aye.
Santos? Fahm?
Yes.
Naomi Bernier?
Yes.
Fuller?
Yes.
Kendall?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes, motion passes 7-0.
Number 3, authorization for specific functions. It's recommended that the board authorize the following signatures for functions indicated below: all district functions, all county schools functions, all state of California's functions, and scholarship CD account functions.
Looking for a motion.
Move approval to accept the recommendation as outlined for the authorization for specific functions.
Second. It's moved by Stewart, second by Kendall. Roll call vote, please.
Stewart?
Aye.
Kendall?
Yes.
Santos?
Yes.
Palm?
Yes.
Naomi Bernier?
Yes.
Fuller?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Item number 4.
Establishing the time and place of our regular meetings. Same time, same place it's always been. It's recommended that the board accept the recommendations as presented in the proposed calendar and establish the date, time, and place of the 2025 calendar year regular meetings of the Board of Education.
Looking for a motion.
Move approval to establish time and place of regular meetings.
Been moved by Kendall, second by Santos. Roll call vote, please.
Kendall?
Yes.
Santos? Yes. Palm?
Yes.
Naomi Bernier?
Yes.
Fuller?
Yes.
Stewart?
Aye.
Martin?
Yes, motion passes 7-0.
Okay.
Item number 5.
Item number 5. So this is the portion of the meeting where if you're nominating oneself, there's no second that's required, or if you're nominating a fellow member, there's no second that's required, and then we'll do a vote call after we open it up. So the first position that is up is election of the president. One member is to be elected as president, no more than one member, and it's currently President Martin. So now we're going to open up the floor for nominations.
I'd like to nominate Colleen Martin to continue as the board president.
Okay. Any other nominations? All right, so we're ready for a vote. So we'll just go around and do a roll call.
Fuller?
Yes.
Kendall?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Naomi Bernier?
Yes.
Palm?
Yes.
Santos? Stewart?
Yes. Aye.
All right, congratulations, President Martin. You get to continue on for year 2.
It really should be a 2-year term.
It should
The
be.
way
Yes, okay.
you get better at it.
All right, election of the vice president. So according to board bylaws, one member is to be elected as the vice president who shall serve as the chairman in the absence of the president. So it's currently Vice President Stewart. So we're accepting nominations now.
I nominate Mr. Stewart. Stay with the team.
Any other nominations?
I'll nominate Trustee Naomi Vernier.
Okay. Any other nominations? All right, so we have 2 nominations on the floor now. So now when you cast your vote, now you say the name of the person that you're voting in favor of. Okay, any questions before we take a vote? Okay.
Fuller?
Naomi Vernier.
Kendall?
Mr. Stewart.
Martin?
Mr. Stewart.
Naomi Bernier?
Myself.
Palm?
Stewart.
Santos?
Stewart.
Stewart?
Stewart.
Here it is, 2-4. There we go. All right, election of the clerk. So according to the bylaws, one member is elected as clerk. Currently, it's Ms. Kendall, and now we're accepting nominations for the position of clerk.
I nominate Ms. Kendall.
Any other nominations? Seeing no other nominations, cast our votes.
Fuller?
Kendall.
Kendall?
Oh, yes. Kendall.
This is confusing.
Martin?
Kendall.
Naomi Vernier?
Kendall.
Palm?
Kendall.
Santos?
Stewart.
Kendall.
Unanimous. All right, congratulations. We have our officers elected. All right, so now moving on to number 8. Appointment of the official school district representative to the annual governing board's representatives meeting and San Luis Obispo County County School Board Association liaison representative. So the board shall elect one of its members to be the voting representative to the annual governing board's representatives meeting, which is normally held between October and December annually and may be held after the SLO CSBA annual fall dinner meeting. The district representative's only responsibility is to select members for the county committee on the school district organization. It's appropriate to also name a liaison representative to the San Luis Obispo County School Boards Association. This individual represents the governing board at executive board meetings of the SLO CSBA. many districts automatically name the same person to both positions. And so this was previously Trustee Mayor. And so now we're opening up the floor for nominations.
Who wants to do it?
I'm willing to do it in this.
I nominate Ms. Kendall.
Okay. Any other nominations? Okay. All right. So we'll do a quick vote cast. Roll call vote.
Fuller,
Yes.
Kendall,
Yes.
Martin,
Kendall.
Naomi Vernier,
Kendall.
Tom,
Kendall.
Santos,
Stewart.
Aye.
All right. 2 positions for Candell now. You're on a roll. Here we go. Board Representative to the Central California School Financing Authority. Central California School Financing Authority is a JPA between Lucimar Unified School District and San Luis Coastal Unified School District, established in 1990 related to property in Price Canyon. A vote for appointment of 1 representative is requested. It's currently Trustee Candell, but we're opening up the floor to other folks who might be interested. This is the quickest and easiest meeting you will ever participate in. And it usually doesn't last more than 5 to 10 minutes. Yeah.
5 to 10 minutes by Zoom. I nominate Ms. Pham. Well, it's about property. You're a realtor.
Anybody else? Okay, so we're ready to cast our votes.
It's quick.
It's quick, and it's on Zoom. You don't have to drive in for it.
On Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fuller, Fuller,
Pham.
Kendall, Martin,
Pham.
Naomi Vernier,
Yeah.
Tom,
Yes.
Santos, Stewart.
Aye.
All right, and so board volunteers for up to 2 for the Wall of Fame Naming of Facilities Committee. The superintendent may on occasion establish a naming of facilities or Wall of Fame committee to review suggestions and make recommendations to the school district. The superintendent, after a careful review, may bring their recommendations for the board to consider. If there's an interest from any members of, if there's an interest from any members to be observers, up to 2 volunteers may be considered this evening for any meetings to be held within the upcoming school year. This is the Superintendent's Citizen Advisory Committee in accordance with the board policy. So it was Trustee Pham and Trustee Santos who were volunteering to serve on it up until now, but we're opening it up to an additional 2 volunteers.
Ms. Santos, would you like to continue doing it?
No.
Okay.
I've done it in the past. I'm happy to volunteer for 1.
Okay, Mr. Stewart, 1. Does anyone else like to do?
Don't all jump out at once.
Ms. Kendall's on a
Someone else
roll.
wants to do
She's
it.
on a roll.
There's no meetings.
Yeah, I mean, it's very rare. So,
Yeah.
Mr. Stewart and Ms. Kendall have
So for instance, if somebody makes a recommendation to rename a facility,
Right.
a room, or whatnot, that person would be on that committee. Yeah, you did it.
Did Zoom.
Okay.
Great.
No, you went in, I went Zoom.
Mr. Stewart and Ms. Kendall.
Okay, Ms. Stewart, Ms. Candell, I guess we could confirm that. So if you're in support of Ms. Stewart, Ms. Candell, we'll do a quick roll call vote.
Fuller,
Candell.
This is a simple yes or no.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kendall,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Naomi Vernier,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Santos,
Yes.
Stewart.
Aye.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 21, action, student expulsion, student discipline case number 2425-16 and 2425-18. Ms. Kendall.
I move for agreement and stipulation for an expulsion with suspended enforcement. 1, the Board of Education finds there is cause to expel from all schools in this district student case number 23-24-16 for violation of Education Code Section 48900A1 and 48900.4. It is further moved that the board adopt the recitals, agreements, and rehabilitation plans and readmission review dates set forth in November 12, 2024 agreement and stipulation for an immediate expulsion with suspended enforcement.
Second.
Motion by Kendall, second by Stewart. Roll call vote, please.
Kendall?
Yes.
Stewart?
Aye.
Santos?
Yes.
Palm?
Yes.
Naomi Bernier?
Yes.
Fuller?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes, motion passes 7-0.
Okay, I move agreement and stipulation for an immediate expulsion. One, the Board of Education finds there is cause to expel from all schools in the district student case number 24-25-18 for violation of Education Code Section 48900B. Two, it is further moved that the board adopt the recitals, agreements, rehabilitation plans, and readmission review dates set forth in the November 14, 2024 agreement and stipulation for an immediate expulsion.
Second.
It's been moved by Kendall, second by Stewart. Roll call vote, please.
Kendall?
Yes.
Stewart?
Aye.
Santos?
Yes.
Palm?
Yes.
Naomi Bernier?
Yes.
Fuller?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Thank you. And now, for our guests that have waited so long, I really appreciate your learning about our school district as you waited to provide public comment. I have 6 speaker cards here. The limit is 3 minutes and 20 minutes per topic. I have a sense that you're all here for the same topic, so we're not going to allow you to go over your 3 minutes. The first one, I'm just going to tell you the order. Dina, Cheryl, David, Carolyn, Jim, and Donna. That's how it's going to go. You can trade Z, but don't tell me about it. Okay, so Dr. Handy is here. She has our little traffic stuff. At yellow, she's going to know that you're going to wrap up your comments because we really are strict on our timing. So Dina, if you'd come forward to the podium and share your public comment, we'd appreciate it.
First, unrelated, I think I know why you guys have a lack of substitutes. The CTC is horrible at processing the applications, but that's a different topic. So I see on the screen up here the powerful message that you guys have that says, why do we exist? And it went on to explain, engage, challenge, and inspire all students to be lifelong learners and achieve their full potential. And that's why I'm here. I'm here to urge you guys to keep these values by dropping the ADL from your educational curriculum. I know they're trying to push that agenda all throughout the state and all throughout the country. So I urge you guys to not fall for that trap. And I'm also here to make sure that the existence of Palestinians and our painful history isn't erased in our history books. So as a Palestinian, it brings me great pain to know that our education system is trying to erase everything about my identity and history. The ADL wants to block schools from discussing anything related to Palestinians and the ongoing genocide happening against innocent Palestinian civilians. The ADL wants to erase our existence from history and society by masking it as anti-Semitic to discuss anything related to Palestine. It's not fair to me or my children to be forced to hide our heritage and our history in order to satisfy the ADL's racist agenda. Please don't allow the ADL to push their harmful goals into our education system. I mean, it's pretty sad because I've attended public school all throughout my life, and Muslims and Arab Americans are never taught or discussed in a positive view to our students. So that's really harmful and that's really sad. And it saddens me that there's actually a push to even erase our existence completely. So discussing Palestine or our heritage or our background is going to be seen as anti-Semitic or seen as something that's racist or harmful. But that's horrible. That's our history. That's our heritage. That's our identity. And what they want us to do is just silence ourselves and blend and say we don't exist. So please don't fall for that trap and don't let the ADL trickle their racist values into this beautiful educational system that we have here on the Central Coast. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up is Cheryl Stewart.
Hi, as Colleen Martin said, my name is Cheryl Storton. I have lived in Arroyo Grande for 50 years. All 8 of my stepchildren graduated from Arroyo Grande High School, 7 of my step grandchildren also graduated from the same school. No step great grandchildren yet. I'm sorry, they won't add to your budget. So I know this district, maybe in the future. I have always believed that the school board wants the best education for all our children and works in their best interests. Our students need and deserve an unbiased education. That is why we are asking you not to sign any contracts with the California Teachers Collaborative for Holocaust and Genocide Education. What a mouthful. The Anti-Defamation League is set to be a major player in education in this training program. The Anti-Defamation League maintains that supporting Palestine and demanding a ceasefire is anti-Semitism and spreads hate for the Jewish people. That is not true. The conflict, genocide in Gaza is not about religion. It is about humanity and the corrupt government of Netanyahu and the land grab and resource grab. Although the official death toll in Gaza since October 2023 is over 43,000 people, mostly women and children, this is likely a huge undercount. Most agencies report that it is likely that well over 100,000 civilians have been massacred by the Israel Defense Forces, the IDF. The IDF has bombed and destroyed homes, hospitals, schools, mosques, temples, churches, refugee camps, and vital infrastructure. Gazans are starving and unable to escape. No toilets, no clean water, no food, no medicine. So to end, please do not sign a contract with the California Teachers Collaborative for Holocaust and Genocide Education until there are voices for Palestine in that group. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Storton. All right, David.
Good evening, and thank you all. My name is David Yo. I'm from Morro Bay, and my educational system failed me. I was kind of dyslexic in my growing up, and so reading was really kind of a joke because I would get laughed at. So I'm going to try to read to you, and I hope I get it out in 3 minutes. As educators, I thank you all as educators. You have the responsibility to choose the curriculum for the coming semesters. I am asking you to evaluate the suggested programs with an open mind, and remember that you hold the responsibility of teaching our children to be able to think rationally and not just to repeat that which has been prepared by outside lobbies. I am petitioning for equal rights and balanced textbooks. School textbooks and curriculum are a powerful means by which controlling forces forms the perception of our interpretation, allowing for the manipulation of young minds. The best way to address this is through open dialogue, not through suppression of speech. The suppression of Palestinian voices has serious consequences for all students. Teachers should not feel threatened to teach about racism against Palestinians. History calls for analysis and criticism. History examines all versions and tries to make sense of the differences. We must ensure that outside interests do not restrict our educational system to approved knowledge for our younger generation. We must not allow outside interests to alter and rewrite the past to suit contemporary needs. Since the state or its approved lobbies controls the educational apparatus, it can shape the nation's collective memory by determining what is to be included and excluded from the curriculum and from textbooks. Such a course of action opens the way for manipulation of the past in order to mold the present and the future. 3 minutes is not long enough. Please, we beg you. There will be, if you undertake this, there will be more children being taken out of your schools, and there goes your revenue, because they will be going to private schools and to homeschooling. Bless you all, and thank you.
Thank you, and drive safely back to Morro Bay after the meeting.
Mm.
Carolyn.
My name is Carolyn Kruger. I'm from Morro Bay. I'm a retired teacher with LAUSD, taught in the elementary arts program for 10 years. Our delegation is here because during the very moments that Israel is committing genocide in Palestine, our state legislature has passed education bills that erase Palestine, Palestinians, and the ongoing genocide. One such bill, SB 1277, seeks to control the way in which our public school teachers learn and teach about genocide. It promotes as the sole resource for teacher training the California Teachers Collaborative for Holocaust and Genocide Education. More accurately, it promotes indoctrination over education. This collaborative supports the agenda of a foreign power through its mostly pro-Israel membership, which includes the Anti-Defamation League as a major player. We urge you to look deeply and critically at the ADL and the California Teachers Collaborative and put your students' needs above those of a foreign government. I have prepared a packet for each of you with information to help you place these developments into a facts-based context. Our open letter is included. To date, it has been signed by just short of 1,000 citizens across our state. The letter urges that you not contract for professional development with the collaborative until its teacher training program 1 includes scholars on Palestine, 2 expels the Anti-Defamation League and other organizations that conflate anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism, and 3 develops a transparent and accountable governance structure. So we're really very focused on this bill, 1277, and the harms that it could cause. And we hope to be in touch with you next year to discuss further, to have a conversation about what can be an alternative to the Teachers Collaborative. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next one is Jim Silva.
Evening. My name is Jim Silva, and I'm a retired school teacher from Lompoc, having taught both primary and secondary. The Israel lobby wants us to teach more genocide education. We already adequately teach it in our social studies curriculum, so why? They say there's an uptick in anti-Semitism, but that's not true. They make up their own statistics, including as anti-Semitic any criticism of Israel and any anti-genocide protests, even if they're put on by Jews. But why would they lie about it and push this on us now? 1, to distract us from the genocide our government and Israel are committing now and for the last year. And 2, to continue the constant narrative of Israel as the victim. So we will continue to support the Zionist, expansionist, racist, white European colonial settlement in the middle of Arab lands, including its removal and extermination of the natives that is a common characteristic of all colonial settler societies, including our own. The World Court found enough evidence of genocide twice to recommend indictments of Israel's leaders, Netanyahu and Gallant. The International Criminal Court has issued arrest warrants for them for extermination, starvation, intentionally attacking civilian populations, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. That classroom discussion would be quite a learning experience, wouldn't it? But the curriculum the collaboration wants to foist on you and our kids won't include this genocide. the one that is happening now, and the one most relevant to all of us. Because this genocide is our genocide, bought and paid for out of your pockets and mine with our tax money, pushed for by the bought and paid for politicians we voted in, enabled by silence and lack of moral courage. Biden could stop this Holocaust with one phone call. Lacking any knowledge of the history of the region, most Americans are confused. But still, 70% want an end of this genocide and want our government to stop supporting it. This collaboration curriculum won't prevent future Holocausts. It will enable them because its whole purpose is to continue the one that's going on now. It isn't mandated that you have to waste money and precious teacher and staff time on this unfortunately harmful indoctrination. I urge you to bypass it. We can do better. We already are with our current curriculum. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, moving on to Donna. Donna Pulling. Oh, well, I don't blame her there. Okay, and then Abby.
I'm Abby Lassen. I have two daughters who went through the CMR schools. I was not intending to speak tonight. I am so pleased that I am here to remind you that there's more than one side to what you just heard. I have less than 3 minutes to counter what you've just heard. I have been a supporter of the Anti-Defamation League. The No Place for Hate program has benefited students here, as Mr. Eichberger knows, for several years. In 1913, the ADL was formed to secure justice and fair treatment for all. I'm emphasizing all because it is not accurate, in my opinion, that the ADL has any goal to malign or to teach anything about Palestinians. I am not prepared tonight to tell you everything about the Senate Bill 1277, other than I know that reputable educators have supported this effort. I am still involved, even though we don't have a regional ADL San Luis contingent through our Santa Barbara office. I was recently at a celebration for a director that is handing over to a new person, and we have reaffirmed for our region that the ADL is here for all residents that have any discrimination issues. And I'm sadly here to say that it is not untrue that anti-Semitism has been rising. I disagree with a lot of the other facts that you were just conveyed. And I urge you to please do be in contact with our local ADL, and I'm happy to help make that connection. The new director is very anxious to spend more time in our county, and as I've reached out to some board members, I'm very interested also in your ethnic studies adoption, that the Jewish community here is very interested in promoting understanding of genocide, ethnic studies in a way that benefits all students. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Is there anyone else who would like to make public comment on items not on our agenda tonight? If so, please come forward. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment on items not on the agenda and bring it back to the board to adjourn our last meeting of 2024 and wish you all a happy holidays and safe travels on your break. And thank you for coming tonight.